I'm on a quest to platinum every mainline Resident Evil game before the release of Resident Evil Requiem, and at this point in our quest, we are almost halfway through January, and with Requiem's release being just over 40 days away, we are really going to have to pick up the pace. So without any further ado, I present to you Resident Evil 4. Hey Cowpoke, Abstract Armadillo here, and for this edition of Platinum Quest, we'll be earning the platinum in one of my favorite games of all time. The remake of Resident Evil 4 was released in 2023, and being a huge fan of the original Resident Evil 4, it was a day one buy for me. Resident Evil 4 was originally released in 2005 for the GameCube, later being ported to the PlayStation 2. The original Resident Evil 4 was my introduction to the Resident Evil franchise, so I've always been a little partial to it. I played this game all the time at my friends' houses, but my parents would never let me buy it for myself, so I never completed it until it was ported to the Xbox 360 in 2011. If that's surprising to anyone, I grew up in the kind of home where we were allowed to play Grand Theft Auto, but only if we kept the volume on mute, and I guess my parents drew the line at killing zombies because they're not real people. All of that to say, I was stoked when the remake of Resident Evil 4 came out and beat the game upon release. Having some foresight though, I must have known I'd one day become a trophy hunting content creator, so I decided to save the platinum for another time, that time being now. And this is also a special occasion because if I can platinum this game, it will be my 100th platinum overall. Here are all of the trophies I previously earned almost 3 years ago, which mostly includes story-related trophies, trophies for beating the game, and a few challenge-related trophies. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's dive right into our platinum quest in Resident Evil 4 Remake. Spoilers ahead, duh. For me to get this platinum, we'll have to complete the game a few times. Now, if you're familiar with the trophies for the previously remade Resident Evil games, namely 2 and 3, you'll be fairly accustomed to the kinds of things we'll need to do for 4. And if you're not, be sure to check out my previous Platinum Quest videos for those games. And hey, why not subscribe to the channel while you're at it, if you like this sort of thing. For my first playthrough, I started the game on Assisted Difficulty, which is the game's easiest difficulty, with my main goal being to complete the game at my own pace while collecting all of the treasure across the game's 3 locations for the trophies Bandit, Raider, and Burglar. I would also need to complete all of the merchant's requests for the trophy Jack of all Trades, and lastly, destroy all of the Clockwork Castellans, this game's version of the bobbleheads featured in Resident Evil 2 and 3, for the trophy Revolution Windup. Before starting this playthrough, I had to make a quick detour though into the game's Mercenaries mode. Now, Mercenaries is essentially a timed horde survival mode set in Resident Evil and has been featured in a few of the games. The goal here is to kill infected as quickly as possible, maintaining a combo for killing them in quick succession. In Mercenaries, there are a handful of maps based off of locations throughout the game's main campaign. And the reason we're starting with Mercenaries is because earning an S rank on 3 of these maps will allow us to buy a hand cannon from the in-game bonus shop. The hand cannon is an extremely powerful weapon with the precision of an intoxicated toddler, but it's fun to use, and if you already have some money and spinels to spend at the merchant like I did, you can make it an infinite ammo killing machine pretty early on in the game. So after about an hour of futzing about in Mercenaries, I completed all of the challenges I needed to and bought the hand cannon from the shop. Then it was time to move on to my first, technically second, playthrough of Resident Evil 4. In Resident Evil 4, we play as Leon S. Kennedy, one of the main characters from Resident Evil 2. After surviving the Raccoon City incident 6 years later, the previous RPD rookie has moved up in the ranks and is now working as a US government agent. In his new role, Leon is sent on a mission to rescue the US president's daughter, Ashley Graham, who has been abducted by the cult Los Illuminados in Spain. At the start of the game, Leon is escorted by 2 local police officers into the cult's home base, a small Spanish village, and before Leon can even crack a whimsy joke, these officers are munched on by some of the village's residents. This is where Leon notices something is off, about the villagers at least, and after being attacked by one of them, he jumps out a window before making his way into the village square. In the village square, we witness a group of villagers hosting a barbecue. and with an aversion to fun, Leon decides to spoil the party by attacking them. After killing a number of the villagers and being chased by the barbecue's chainsaw-wielding meat carver, the villagers are locked into a trance by some bells coming from the clock tower. From here, we move on through the rest of the chapter and eventually locate Luis Serra in a freaky kink dungeon where he has been bagged up and hogtied. Luis is essentially this game's Barry Burton or Carlos Oliveira. He's the cool cat that used to work as a researcher for Umbrella, but now he just wants to help out because I guess bioterrorism doesn't sit well with him. But who does it sit well for? We free Luis from his bondage, but immediately after we are attacked by the Undertaker from WWE, who injects Leon with Las Plagas, the parasite that has infected the villagers we faced up until this point. Las Plagas is similar to the viruses from the previous Resident Evil games, with the exception that it infects its host. So a clear distinction to make is that we are fighting infected people here and not zombies. These infected are smarter and generally more dangerous than the previous game's enemies, and are able to use weapons like scythes, crossbows, molotovs, and more. Fun. After being chained up by the Undertaker, Luis and Leon escape and go their separate ways. Leon has been robbed of all of his gear, so we set out to get it back. After retrieving our gear, we run into Resident Evil 4's Merchant, who is one of my favorite characters across all of Resident Evil. He's this mysterious arms dealer shrouded in a cloak and drops some of the hardest lines in the entire series.
Well now, time to cause some mayhem!
For that reason alone, he joins the ranks of our Resident Evil coolness tier list, right alongside Wesker in S tier. Once we finish meeting the Merchant, we move on and collect a few parts to inevitably make our way back to the village. First, we have to collect a crest from the village's valley, where we are attacked by a horde of dynamite-tossing villagers. Then we have to head back to the Merchant, open a gate, and head to the manor. At the manor is one of the game's most frustrating puzzles.
Hello? Are you pooping?
It's not hard or anything, you just have to look at these dots in an orb and line them up with an emblem on the door. But I didn't get the hang of it until my 4th playthrough, so call me stupid, call me whatever you want. But my first go around, I really hated it. At the manor, we are attacked once again by the Undertaker. But luckily, a mysterious figure is hanging out outside to save the day. After leaving the manor, we head back to the village and use a key we obtained at the manor to unlock the door to the town hall. And around this time, I got the opportunity to earn my first trophy in this run. The trophy, Shield Your Eyes, requires us to defeat 3 enemies at once using a flash grenade. And shortly after going through Town Hall, we come to this area with a flock of crows chilling out on the ground. Being the party pooper he is, we tossed a flash grenade on the ground by the crows as Leon, which popped the trophy. After this, we have to go through the game's lake chapter. Now to make it there, we collect a fuel canister that is being tightly guarded by some villagers in a fish farm, complete a few of the merchant's requests, collect some treasure, and destroy Castellans along the way. Once we have the canister, we fuel up a boat at a nearby dock and encounter our first boss fight. While casually driving out onto the lake, Leon is attacked by Del Lago, and while one might assume Del Lago is a giant fish, it actually turns out that it is a salamander.
Remember who you are!
Del Lago is huge, and the boss consists of it dragging us around on our boat while we throw an endless supply of spears into his body. It's a fairly straightforward boss, and to be honest with you, I never really had much trouble with it. After defeating Del Lago, we move on throughout the lake, gathering more collectibles and completing more of the merchant's requests. After taking care of all of that, we collect a few stone heads to place on some stone hands, which unlocks a key to get into the church back at the village. Once we have this, we head back to the village, but before getting there, we're locked into an arena setting for our second boss fight with a giant ogre.
What are you doing in my swamp?
On a first playthrough, this boss can give a little bit of trouble, but since I had the hand cannon, I was able to make quick work of him. Also, there's a wolf earlier on in the game you can free from a bear trap that will help you during this encounter. I never needed to do this for any of my playthroughs here, but I think only a monster would leave him to suffer in the trap, so of course, I helped him out every single time. After defeating the ogre, we can head back to the church, and at the church, we rescue Ashley and go on our way to escape the village. To do this, we need to head to a rendezvous point for helicopter extraction, only to find out that the weather makes any sort of rendezvous impossible. Now, while trying to find a place to hold out until the weather passes, we're chased into a building by some villagers where we meet back up with Luis. Luis and Leon fend off a horde of villagers for a while until Ashley eventually finds a way out of the building they're fighting in. This completes this chapter, and we're able to move on. At the beginning of the next chapter, Ashley starts coughing up blood like she's Arthur Morgan in Red Dead Redemption 2.
I'm dying, sister.
Which leads Luis to reveal that she too is infected with Las Plagas, and it is only a matter of time until the parasite infects her like it has the villagers. He heads off to get Ashley some medicine from his lab, and we head on our way, collecting more treasure, destroying some Castellans, and you get the idea. Eventually, the Undertaker pops back up and gives chase to Leon and Ashley. They escape for a brief moment, only to be attacked once again in a barn for our next boss fight. The Undertaker boss comes in phases. After getting through the first, he sprouts some giant scorpion claws from his arms and then uses them to throw some flaming wooden boards at us. With the hand cannon, we put him down with ease and escape the burning barn with Ashley's help. From here, we're able to move on to the next chapter at the castle, ending our time in Resident Evil 4's village. Before that though, we have to collect the village's last treasure, which is hanging from a tree just before the game's next location. Doing so pops the trophy Bandit. At the castle, we're ambushed by some catapults that shoot flaming rocks at us. This is honestly the hardest part of the game, not for any good reason, but Ashley is fairly incompetent during all of this, and I found that she would more often than not just get smashed by the rocks on her own without me having any say in the matter. One of my biggest issues with the original Resident Evil 4 was Ashley's AI, and getting annoyed with always having to keep her safe. It is hugely improved in the remake, don't get me wrong, but there are still some moments where I thought she was more trouble than she was worth. More on that later. Once we get through the castle entrance, we head inside and are introduced to our next big, or I guess in this case, small baddie, Ramon Salazar. Salazar is a tiny Napoleon-like man who talks like this.
Mr. Kennedy.
He's kind of the funniest part of the entire game, and amongst the villains here, he definitely stands out, even if it is at least 3 solid feet below the others.
That tickles.
No shame in that though. We don't height shame here. Go off, Tiny King. The castle is where I get my next trophy, Never Heard It Coming, which is earned for defeating a Garrador using only knives. A Garrador is essentially a gimp with metal claws that Salazar keeps chained up throughout the estate. We encounter our first one shortly after meeting Salazar, and to get this trophy, we have to sneak behind the Garrador a few times to stab his weak spot with our knife. Since the Garradors are blind, this isn't much of an issue and is generally safer than shooting them anyway, and once we finished our first Garrador off, the trophy pops and we move on through the castle. Eventually, the incompetent Ashley gets kidnapped again, and we have to rescue her again. To reach her, we move through the castle's battlements, where we are attacked by another ogre who hurls rocks at us as we move through the area. We eventually reach the end of the battlements, where we have to raise a cannon to shoot the ogre and blast through the doors to the main part of the castle. Once we're finished here, we reconvene with Ashley and move on to the next chapter. To progress, we have to collect 3 heads for the statue in the castle's foyer. Once we've done this, Leon is caged up by Salazar, leaving Ashley on her own. In this next sequence, we have to play as Ashley. There are some treasures here we have to collect, and the hardest part of all of that is that Ashley is pretty helpless by herself. To get these treasures, we have to dodge some more knights, and then to progress, we head down to the castle's mausoleum where there are even more knights. Once we get down there, we solve this puzzle, then head back up to help Leon get out of his enclosure. When we get back to Leon, Ashley gets kidnapped once again, and then the chapter ends. When the next chapter starts, we pick back up playing as Leon and have to rescue Ashley. Along the way, we meet yet another new enemy type called Novistadors, another experiment by Los Illuminados created by fusing human DNA with insect genes in Las Plagas. These guys suck.
Is this poop? It looks like poop.
They can camouflage to blend in with their surroundings, fly to wherever you are, and also attack in large numbers, which can at times be extremely overwhelming. They first pop up in the castle's ballroom, where you have to escape a hive of them. Upon doing so, we unlock our path forward, but before moving on, we have to backtrack through the castle to collect some previously locked treasures and finish a merchant request that has us head back down to the mausoleum to kill the knight to end all knights. This playthrough was the perfect one for this sort of thing. There are a few merchant requests like this in the game that require you to backtrack a bit to kill some mini-bosses that have spawned. With the hand cannon, I finished the night off with no problem and move on to the next area. In the next section, there are a couple of Gandalfs that try to rip Leon apart. They can be a little annoying, but if you play your cards right, you can actually have one of them kill the other with his claws, then finish the other one off on your own. The Gandalfs drop some My Little Pony unicorn horns we can use to unlock a door in the room. On the other side of the door is the throne room, where Leon tries to rescue Ashley but is sent deep underneath the castle into some caves. At the start of this section, we encounter some more sneaky Nosferatus, and at the end of this particular cave, we find an elegant crown. Now, there is a trophy in this game for selling an item to the merchant worth 100,000 pesetas, and this is the item to do it. Inlaying certain gemstones in the crown makes it worth that much or more, but since I already got that trophy in my 2023 playthrough, we're not worried about it here. Once we're out of the cave, we head up into the underground laboratory where we are attacked by Salazar's right hand, aka the Verdugo. Verdugos are bioweapons engineered to serve and protect Salazar. They're incredibly tough enemies with hard shells and deadly tails that they can use to surprise us with attacks from grates throughout the lab. In the lab, we have to restore power to the facility and take an elevator out of this section, but the elevator takes an extremely long time to arrive. Now, you can either kill the Verdugo, and that will speed the elevator up, or survive long enough for the elevator to arrive naturally. There is a trophy for killing the Verdugo, but again, I already had this one from my 2023 playthrough, and since the boss isn't really much of a match for the hand cannon, I decided to go ahead and kill it here too. After killing Verdugo, we head up into the mines where we find Louise. Louise gives Leon a suppressant for Las Plagas, which buys us some more time to reach Ashley. With Louise, we go through this minecart section where you can get another trophy I already had for completing the section without the minecart taking any damage. Now, I think the minecart part is actually pretty fun, but Louise would always say this line during it. We're going off the rails! Which always made me think of the game Thrillville Off the Rails, and I would inevitably get the song from that game stuck in my head each time I did this section.
Off the rails! Here we go now! Off the rails! Here we go now! Off the rails!
Eventually, we make it out of the mines after fighting some more infected, and this encounter with two ogres that, like every other enemy in this game, are pretty easy to deal with using the hand cannon. After the mines, we have to move through the Nosferatu hive where Louise and Leon are swarmed by these nasty little bugs. Down here, we complete another merchant request for destroying all of the nests on the main hive and then make our way up to a lift at the end of the hive. Once we're up the lift, Louise is unfortunately stabbed in the back by Leon's old commanding officer, Jack Krauser. This part has always made me a little sad because I ship Leon and Louise pretty hard in my head. To avenge his fallen lover, Leon confronts Krauser and the two engage in a duel of fates using their knives and whimsy.
Let me see what you have!
No!
After a handful of slashes, we get the better of Krauser and are able to escape the mines and head back to the castle. At the castle, we have to take another lift up to reach Salazar. This is where I had a chance to earn another trophy, Capacity Compliance, for reaching the top of the clock tower without the lift stopping once. To do this, I had to battle a constant barrage of enemies trying to jump on the lift, and if any of them managed to land, the lift would stop in place. Using my magical one-hit machine, I gave those infected cult members a hand cannon job and finished at the top, where we got the trophy. Immediately after the lift section, we head outside to the clock tower and collect the last treasure we need in the castle section, unlocking the trophy, Raider. At the end of this path, we come to some doors where we finally come crotch to face with Salazar. Salazar informs us that he no longer has Ashley, and then mutates into whatever this is. Starting our next boss fight. During this encounter, we're able to unlock another trophy for throwing a grenade into Salazar's mouth, and upon doing so, the trophy, You Talk Too Much, pops up.
You talk too much.
You never shut up.
I said you talk too much.
Oh boy, you never shut up.
After squishing Salazar like a bug, we move to the third and last location of the game, the island. With this section, we're in the final stretch, and all that's really left to do now is rescue Ashley. When we get to the island, we have to fight through some of the toughest basic enemies in the game, and since they're guarding Sadler, the head honcho, these guys are pretty much all suited up with body armor and what have you. But there's still no match for my hand cannon. We end up in another lab where we have to upgrade a keycard we find in order to rescue Ashley from the cell she is being contained in. On our journey to upgrade this keycard, we are introduced to a new enemy known as Regenerators. These naked, bald bastards can take as much damage as they can deal out, and are the only enemies in the game where the hand cannon isn't super effective. With the gun, we can essentially pin them down to the ground and keep shooting them until they die, but if we're too close, as is the case in some situations where they spawn, they'll just flop on the ground and thrust towards us regardless of how much lead we're pumping into these voluptuous gray ass cheeks. But with enough persistence, we're able to penetrate those cheeks until they blow up like an order of loaded beef nachos from Taco Bell. Once we finished off some Regenerators, we upgrade the keycard and free Ashley from her confinement, and after she unlocks a door, she says this little piece of dialogue.
Pretty much a master of unlocking.
Which I guess is where the trophies for unlocking everything in Resident Evil 2 and 3 derived their name from. Immediately after this, we run into the merchant once again, and he is standing by the final shooting range in the game. The shooting range isn't something I've brought up in this video yet. It's pretty much what it sounds like, a shooting range with challenges where you have to shoot targets with various weapons you obtain in the campaign. Since there were a couple of trophies I'd yet to acquire in the shooting range, I hopped right in. There are 12 stages at the shooting range overall, and for one trophy we'll have to earn an S rank in all of them. The last of the shooting range stages doesn't unlock until you reach this particular merchant in the game, and I was happy to find I'd already obtained an S rank on at least half of them. Getting an S rank in all of these stages was pretty easy for the most part. The S rank requires us to destroy all of the targets in a stage in a certain amount of time or with a limited amount of ammo. The only one I really had trouble with was one of the last ones, and oh my god, having trouble with it may be the nicest way I can put this. I already don't like Ashley as a character, and during this stage, her constant input and words of affirmation were about to send me over the edge. I'd start the challenge up, shoot a wrong target, and she'd always have something to say.
Oh, not that one!
Shut up, Ashley. Christ, girl. Just be talking.
But eventually, after having to hear Ashley tell me everything I was doing wrong as if she hadn't been kidnapped 3 times in the game prior to this, I managed to complete the stage, finally earning the trophy, Real Deadeye. During this process, we also managed to unlock the trophy Trick Shot for destroying 5 targets with a single shot during a shooting range challenge. After finishing up in the shooting range, we continued on through the island, killed some more Regenerators, broke a wall down with a giant wrecking ball, and then confronted the main boss, Sadler, in a warehouse where the amber-encased Las Plagas was being stored. At the end of this encounter, Sadler manages to kidnap Ashley yet again, and we have to rescue Ashley yet again. This is actually a pretty intense section of the game, where everything but the kitchen sink is thrown at Leon, including one final encounter with Krauser.
And let me see what you have! No!
We have to fight almost every type of enemy in the game on our way up to rescue Ashley, but eventually we reach Sadler's lair. When we arrive, we're able to turn in the last merchant request for destroying some blue medallions in previous sections of the island, unlocking the trophy Jack of all trades for completing all of the merchant's requests. Next up, we rescue Ashley after finding her on a shrine and then have to trudge through this slog of a section, carrying her to Luis's lab to perform a surgery that removes the Las Plagas parasite from her body. This ends the chapter, and when we start the next one, we wake up as Leon, discovering that Ashley has put him through the surgery as well. With both characters cured, it's time to confront Sadler and finish this playthrough off for good. On the way to the final boss, we collect some more treasure and find one last merchant. Next to this merchant is the last treasure in the game, and upon collecting it, we unlock the trophy Burglar for obtaining all the treasures on the island. At this merchant, we make a save. This is a pretty critical step for folks looking to platinum the game. With all of the treasures we've collected, we've amassed a small fortune in pesetas, and saving here will allow us to come back after this playthrough to buy any upgrades or weapons we still need after completing the game. Once we've done this, we head down and have our last fight with Sadler. Like most other bosses in this series, Sadler mutates into a big guy with eyeballs all over his body. But to be honest, he's weak sauce, and we're able to blow through him pretty quick. Ada Wong throws a rocket launcher down for us to use. And oh yeah, Ada's back in this game, if I hadn't mentioned that yet. She's the one who's been helping Leon at various points throughout the campaign. You actually find this out earlier, but whatever. We kill Sadler, and then all that's left to do is escape the island with Ashley. As is commonplace in Resident Evil games, the island is set to explode, so we have to rush through some caves to reach a jet ski for our escape. Along the way, we find the last Castellan and destroy it, popping the trophy Revolution Windup for destroying all the Clockwork Castellans. Once on the jet ski, we have to navigate through a course of falling debris to reach the island's exterior, and for doing so, without the jet ski taking any damage, I earn the trophy Smooth Escape. At the end of the game, we get a few cutscenes resolving the arcs for the characters. Leon and Ashley ride off into the sunset on their jet ski like a game of Wave Race 64. Ada joins a Discord server with Wesker. And the government agent Leon has been talking to the entire game sits at her computer doing what government agents do best. With the first step towards the platinum out of the way, it was time to play through the game again. 5 more times to be exact. I finished my first, technically second playthrough in a little over 10 hours. So I started my next playthrough in New Game Plus on assisted difficulty again. The goal being to complete the game using only a knife and a pistol, and to complete it without talking to the merchant. But with a fully upgraded starting pistol, I was able to finish this run in less than 8 hours without talking to the merchant, which depressed me to no end. Upon completing this playthrough, I unlocked the trophies Sprinter for completing the game within 8 hours, Minimalist for completing the game using only a knife and a pistol, and Silent Stranger for completing the game without talking to the merchant once. After this playthrough, I started the game once again on New Game Plus, this time on Professional difficulty. While there is a trophy to complete the game on Professional difficulty, there is also a trophy to obtain all of the weapons in the game. These may seem unrelated, but in order to unlock one of the last required weapons, we'll have to complete the game on Professional with an A rank, and in order to get an A rank, we'll have to finish the game in less than 7 hours. Using the standard weapons provided throughout the game, this might have been a challenge, but by the end of our previous playthrough, we had enough pesetas to buy the infinite ammo rocket launcher. The rocket launcher is able to one-hit essentially any enemy in the game, including bosses, so there were very few areas where I had any actual trouble. In fact, during this playthrough, my greatest rival was, you guessed it, Ashley Graham. This is around the point I started to hate Ashley so much that my blood would boil. The amount of times she would just accidentally run in front of me as I was about to shoot a rocket, killing us both, was beyond absurd. I hated her with every fiber of my being, but after pushing through her incompetency for a few hours, I unlocked the trophy Peerless Agent for completing the game on professional mode. Once I finished my professional playthrough, I navigated to the bonus content shop and bought the Chicago Sweeper, the last weapon I would need for the Gun Fanatic trophy. And after loading a save at the Chapter 16 merchant, I pulled the gun from my inventory, unlocking the trophy. With 3 trophies left until the platinum, everything else was pretty straightforward. To unlock these trophies, I needed to complete the game on standard and hardcore difficulty with an S+ rank. And the biggest problem here is that an S+ rank can't be obtained on New Game Plus, and the game must be completed in less than 5 hours on standard and less than 5.5 hours on hardcore. Since the Infinite Rocket Launcher is exclusive to New Game Plus, I need to get through these playthroughs without it. This is where the Chicago Sweeper comes in, and oh my god, I cannot say enough good things about this gun. This gun is amazing. It is my favorite thing in the universe. I love this gun so much that I'm going to put it in S tier on the Resident Evil Cool Character ranking with Wesker and the Merchant. It's that good. Now, unless you want to pay real-world money to upgrade the Chicago Sweeper early on in the game to unlock its infinite ammo bonus, it can't be fully upgraded until Chapter 7. The game before Chapter 7 can be a little challenging, especially on hardcore difficulty, but nothing undoable. Once the Chicago Sweeper gets the infinite ammo upgrade though, you're pretty much untouchable. With the fully upgraded Chicago Sweeper, I blasted through these runs and eventually earned the trophies Mission Accomplished S+, for completing the game on standard with an S+ rank, and S+ Investigator for completing the game on hardcore with an S+ rank. For our last trophy, we had to complete the game once again without using any recovery items. So I launched the game one more time with the added benefit of a few items we unlocked for completing some of the prior trophies. For finishing the game on hardcore with an S+ rank, we received the Chicken Head accessory, which greatly reduces the damage Leon takes from enemies and also makes Leon look like this. For completing the game on professional, we earned a suit of armor for Ashley, which prevents her from taking damage and also prevents her from being picked up by enemies. So that was one of my biggest annoyances taken care of. In this last playthrough, we're also able to use the Infinite Rocket Launcher and mostly just turn our brain off during the run. The only real issue once again is Ashley. While she can't take any damage thanks to the armor, she still loved throwing herself in front of my rockets at the most inopportune times, and these were the only instances where I ever really took any damage. But in around 2.5 hours, I managed to finish the game once again and unlock the trophy Frugalist, which means I also earned Resident Evil 4's Platinum Trophy, because boredom kills me. And with that, we can finally put Resident Evil 4 to bed. Unless I decide to come back and do the Separate Ways DLC down the line. But with Requiem's release fast approaching, it is time for us to move on to Resident Evil 4 is my 100th platinum. I've been trophy hunting for years, and it feels very satisfying to reach this point. And who knows, maybe I'll make a video down the line highlighting my collection, but as for what's to come, next up on our Platinum Quest, we'll be playing Resident Evil 5. And as always, I stream most of my gameplay over on Twitch, so if you're interested in seeing all of this live, be sure to follow me over there at twitch.tv/abstractarmadillo. And hey, don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube while you're at it. Now if you like this video, be sure to give it a like. I'm Abstract Armadillo, and remember, keep your shells up and your feet on the ground. I'll see you next time.